Hey guys, what's up? My name is Alice and I am Exiled Power's Disc Priest. I am here today to bring you a guide on how to play the new Disc Priest in Legion. Please keep in mind that I am not a theory crafter. I have done a lot of research, however, just don't take my word as gospel. Things may be changed. They're still doing some tuning. Uh, So yeah, if you're looking for a specific part of the video, please click on the buttons and it'll take you to the section that you're most interested in. A little background about me. I have been playing my priest since BC. I played Holy from BC through the end of Kata. Then I did switch to Shadow for Mop and Warlords, and now I am switching to Disc because it is a ton of fun. This guide is going to be for PvE only. I haven't really had a chance to play any PvP yet. I've really been trying to master Disc in a raid and dungeon environment. So I really can't comment on PvP too much. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding Disc right now. There's a lot of things being said on the forums that are just not true at all. The first is that Disc is not a real healer, that Disc is 50-50 damage and healing, or 60-40 or 80-20, whatever percentage that you're seeing is just not true. Disc can pull really good numbers. You just have to understand how the spec works. You have to know when boss abilities are coming. You have to know the boss fights. You have to be a pretty good player to be able to master the Disc Priest. One of the other things that is being said a lot on the forums is that Disc can't heal dungeons. Again, not true. You have to change the way you're playing it a little bit, but it is completely doable. And it can be really fun to do in dungeons as well. So the first thing I do want to talk about is Disc's main mechanic, which is Atonement. So Atonement is when you use Plea, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Mend, and Power Word Radiance. It also applies your Atonement to the target for 15 seconds. When you deal spell damage to the boss, trash, whatever, you instantly heal all of those targets for a percentage of the spell damage based on your mastery. So yeah, you put a bunch of buffs out on your raid, and then you deal damage to your boss or trash or whatever. Pretty simple to understand. Your atonements last for 15 seconds. Yeah, pretty simple. So the 2 or 3 main appliers for it are going to be Plea, which is your efficient heal. It puts a single atonement out. None of these spells are you really paying attention to the healing they do, because the healing you get from the atonements outweighs the healing that you do from the actual spell by a lot. So Plea's main mechanic, however, is that for each atonement that is out, the mana cost of Plea is increased by 100%. What this means is that at a certain point, it is more mana efficient to use Power Word Radiance than it is to use Plea. And right now, I believe that number is at 5. But I'll get into more of that later. Second is Power Word Radiance. This one does have a cast time. It's 1.8 seconds. However, it heals your friendly target and 2 nearest allies that do not have atonement on them. So what it's going to do is, as long as you are casting Power Word Radiance on a target that does not have atonement, it's going to put 3 out at once. 2-second cast time, or 1.8-second cast time. It is more efficient than doing 3 pleas in time, and then once you get enough atonements out on the raid, it's more efficient with mana as well. The third one is your Power Word Shield. It has a 6-second cooldown, which is affected by haste, and it shields your ally for 15 seconds. It absorbs 54,000 damage. However, when you have 500,000 health, it's really not that big, but it does apply your atonement as well. And that mana cost does not change. So that one you're going to want to use on cooldown anyway. So let's go over our talents first. The first is the Penitent, which just makes it so that your penance can be cast on a friendly target. So this is okay when you're learning the spec. However, once you get used to the spec and how it heals, you're really not going to need to use penance on a friendly target at all, ever. So it's just kind of a waste of a talent. Penance is huge when you use it to damage the boss or whatever, because it will heal all of your atonement targets for a lot instead of just doing the one that this talent lets you do. So the go-to talent in this row is going to be Castigation. Penance fires one additional bolt of holy light over its duration, which means that instead of 3, it's firing 4. Unless you have, I think, one of the 4 sets or 2 sets changes that so that you even get another one. And they may, who knows, they may add another one like that. So anyway, all this does is it increases your DPS, it increases your healing for no additional mana cost. It's great talent. Third in this row, which you can switch to if mana allows, is Schism. It does cost 4,000 mana. It's a 1.08 second cast with a 6-second cooldown. Basically what this is it is a damaging ability for 39,000 shadow damage, but it also increases the damage that you deal to that target by 30% for 6 seconds. So normally if you're taking this talent, you're going to cast Schism and then Penance on the target, or Schism and then your artifact ability, Light's Wrath, which is great. However, it costs a lot of mana, and you're probably going to be going on some of these longer fights anyway, so you're going to want to stick with Castigation anyway. So the level 30 talents I don't really need to go over. They're mostly mobility. I stick with the Angelic Feather. That's just a personal preference. Also with Body and Soul, just remember you're going to be using your shield on cooldown. It does have a cooldown now because they removed Weakened Soul. So you're probably not going to get that much use out of that one anyway. Level 45 talents are all your CC talents. I take Shining Force, and it's just a knockback around your target. Don't really use it all that much anyway. So level 60 talents. The go-to talent in this tier is Mindbender. It is a 1-minute cooldown. It replaces your Shadow Fiend. You regen more mana with this talent, and you also can use it as a mini raid cooldown. So you can get a bunch of atonements out, pop your Mindbender, Penance, and it's a huge heal to those members of your raid. Shield Discipline is just not worth it at all because your powered shields are not going to be used as often because it has a 6-second cooldown. Powered Solace, to get the use out of it that you would need, you would have to use it on cooldown, which you can't really do as disc. It's kind of a waste. So Mindbender is definitely the go-to in this one. Level 75 talents, you only really have 2 options here right now. First, and the go-to talent in this tier is going to be Power Infusion. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and it infuses you with power for 20 seconds, increasing haste by 25% and reducing the mana cost of all spells by 20%. When you know a big damage ability is coming from a boss, you would pop this, spam Power Word Radiance, get as many atonements out on the raid as possible, and then right after the boss does his damage, you would fire Penance, or right before you can pop Mindbender, get those heals rolling, and it will get you some massive healing done. You will get the raid back up in no time. The other one that you would have an option of taking is Twist of Fate. It works similarly to the Shadow spell, however, it only procs when you heal a target below 35% health. So it's only really useful on fights where you're going to have people that are going to be below that percentage more often. It does increase your damage and healing by 20% after it procs, but again, it only procs when you're healing somebody that's below that 35%. The third talent here is Contrition, which increases the atonement duration by 2 seconds, which sounds like it's great. And if you're having trouble managing atonements, maybe you could try to use it. However, the other two are so much better, especially Power Infusion is so much better that it's really not worth the talent spot there. Your level 90 talents, again, only two options here. The two options would be Divine Star and Halo. For raids, I do take Halo for running around, and dungeons, I would definitely take Divine Star. The reasoning for this is they are back to doing both damage and healing. So Halo, you can pop it and you may be pulling stuff from all around you. Divine Star is just an aimed version of that, and it does bounce back to you. It's just a little bit safer in the dungeon environment, and especially while out in the world questing. Clarity of Will is the same thing that it always was. It doesn't fit with the disc kit anymore. It doesn't apply atonement. I guess if there's some gimmick in a boss fight that you're trying to prevent, or the tank needs that much extra health that you're spamming it on them, then maybe it's useful for that fight, but it's really not. Also to mention, Halo and Divine Star does proc your atonement heals, but only on the first hit. So it'll heal everybody that it hits, and then it will also proc the damage atonement heal on the first hit, not an AoE. Yeah. So the level 100 talents. As of right now, the go-to talent is going to be Purge the Wicked. It does replace your Shadow Word Pain. And I believe it does do more damage, but it also spreads to additional nearby targets when you cast Penance on the target that has this on it. This is great for questing. It is great for dungeons. It's just a really good talent. So I know a lot of people have been saying that Disc needs an AoE. This isn't really an AoE, but it is a cleave. So if you're out questing, whatever, you cast this on a mob, and then you penance them, and now you have it on too. And then it's ticking on both. It's healing you from both because you probably have a shield on you. It's just great. In dungeons, you're really going to want to take Grace unless you overgear the dungeon. So Grace increases your non-atonement healing and absorption by 30% on targets that have atonement. So in the higher level mythics, in anything where you're going to really be spamming the tank with Shadow Mend, in mythics, you're going to have a powered shield on the tank, which means you're going to have that atonement on the tank, which means when you spam your Shadow Mend on them, you're going to get huge heals from using this. So yeah, those are the talents that I would stick with there. So I will say one thing about Shadow Covenant. It replaces your best atonement applier, which is one of the main reasons that it's just not that great of a talent. It does heal 5 instead of the 3 that Power Word Radiance heals. However, again, it doesn't apply atonement. It just completely ignores your main mechanic of healing as a Disc Priest. So the next thing that I want to talk about is going to be our artifact weapon. So here we are going to look at this. So your main ability from your artifact weapon that you get is Light's Wrath. This is the one you get when you pick up your artifact. So what this is a 1.5 minute cooldown. It does damage to your target, and it's increased by 10% for each ally that has atonement on it. This is huge as a raid cooldown. So you pop your power infusion. You spam your power word radiance. You have your mindbender going. And you get 12, 13, 14 atonements out on your raid. This boss hits as you're casting Light's Wrath. It does have a travel time, so you do have to take that into account. It hits your boss and it heals everybody for not only that 700% of your spell power, but an additional, if you have 13, 130% healing on each of those targets. It is a huge raid cooldown. I have actually heard that it is the strongest raid cooldown right now. And you really don't want to cast it with less than 12 to 13 atonements out on the raid, just because you're kind of wasting its power there. So I'm going to go over the path that pretty much you want to take as of right now. Again, things are changing. They're moving things around. They're still tuning things, so this may change. So you're going to take Invoke the Light, but the one of the strongest traits in here right now is actually Confession. This increases the damage that your penance does to your target. So it is 5, 10, 15. However, you also want to be trying to take the relics that buff this as well. You can get it up to 30% if you get 3 relics in your slots up at the top that increase your ranks for this, and that is huge. So after you take Confession, you're actually going to go onto the right side. So you're going to go all the way through. You're actually going to skip Power of the Dark Side for right now and get your Sins of the Many. This does increase all damage you deal by 1% per ally affected by your atonement. So this is going to, buff your damage, which in turn buffs your atonement. Then you're going to go back and pick up your Power of the Dark Side. This did used to be the strongest gold talent here. It was what you went for first. However, they nerfed it and in turn buffed the Confession trait. So basically all this does is it increases, or it has a chance to increase the damage of, Purge the Wicked has a chance to increase the damage of your next penance. So it was, I think, 10% and they nerfed, or 100% and they nerfed it down to 50%. So that's why you go that direction. After that, you're going to go down, pick up your third, which is Barrier for the Devoted, which increases the healing done by atonement by 100% on targets inside your power word barrier, which is going to be a huge raid cooldown for that as well. And then you can go through and pick up all your other slots as you see fit. There's really not anything else of note in there. All right. So please do keep in mind when you are putting your relic slots in there, item level is going to be king. I know that I had said that you want to take the slots that deal with Confession, and that's mainly only if you are within a certain eye level, because your relic slots, when you put in certain eye levels, it increases the item level of your weapon, which in turn increases the stats as well. So you really want to take the item level. It's more so if you have a choice between a couple of the same level that you want to take Confession if you have the choice. So next, I am going to go over some of the UI and add-ons, things that you're really going to want to track. So there are 3 things that I'm going to say are completely required to play disc. The one is your raid frame, whether that is the default raid frames, LVUI, Voodoo, Grid, whatever you want to use. Just make sure that you can track your atonements on your raid. They are visible. You can see when the time's running out. You need to be able to see what's going on with that. As you can see, I have my Voodoo set up here. You can see my Power Word Shield and my Atonement there. The next is your DBM timers. They're not going to show up here because I'm not in a boss fight. However, you really need to see when the timing for key abilities is going to happen. Most raiders are going to be using that anyway, but it's even more important for disc. The last thing that I believe is completely required is either mouse over macros or click. I'm using Voodoo, so I'm using a combination of mouse over macros and the click based function that is in Voodoo. But the main reason for this is you can keep your mob targeted at all times, and you can still heal. So I can be DPSing, healing. There you go. So, the last one is, I say, optional-ish. Uh, you really need something to track what's going on with your cooldowns and especially your atonements. If you can't see that you have 5 atonements on the raid and you just keep putting plea out there, you are going to go so fast. So as you can see here, they only really show up when I'm in combat here. So this right here is on the left is my atonement tracker. So when I cast Power Word Radiance, you can see how many atonements I have out and then also the mana cost of my plea. Everything in the middle is my cooldowns, and I have my mana bar right there in the second. I also have one that does show raid cooldowns so that if I have Symbol of Hope, if I have Lust, if I have Innervate, everything like that. And then I also have my disc cooldowns as well. So I have my Angelic Feather, my PI, my pot, everything there. All right, so the next thing is going to be the playstyle. So the whole playstyle for disc is a damage to healing spec. Don't expect to be doing a lot of direct healing. That's not what the spec is for. You really have to be able to watch and keep track of a lot of things on your screen at all times to really play efficiently. And also, the playstyle is going to differ between your dungeons and your raids. But both of them, again, you will be the most effective if you know the fights. You need to know when the big damage abilities are going to happen, and you have to watch your boss timers. Some examples of that would be on like Reaver and Cormrock in HFC when they're doing the pounding artillery. Also for Archimond, Rot Chaos, things that you know they're coming at a set time. You can set everything up, and you're golden. So Disc has some strengths and weaknesses, just like every other healer. So their strength is that they really excel at periodic burst damage. So again, you're watching your boss timers, you get everything set up. You really need to know when those abilities are happening. They are really good at group healing. And they can also do about the same DPS as a tank. Right now, it's a little skewed right now because the DPS legendary ring does not work for disc, so we don't get that benefit. It's going to differ once once nobody has those legendary rings, we're going to be a little bit higher in the pack. So their weaknesses, probably the biggest weakness that I see right now is for unexpected burst. If you're in a 5-man dungeon and somebody triggers something that they're not supposed to and everybody takes a lot of damage that you weren't ready for, you really don't have a lot to catch up with that. Another thing is that others can snipe your burst healing. If you are a second late on getting that penance off after the boss does their ability and your monk uses revival, you just lost everything. And again, this one's going to come in with your tracking your atonements. If you're not paying attention, it can be a mana hog. Another thing is if you are casting the entire time, you're going to go in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. I don't know exactly because I haven't tried it. Another weakness is really tank healing. In a raid, you have other healers there. You want to let them do the tank healing. You can do it, however, it's not the most efficient use of your mana. It's not the most efficient use of your time. There are other healers that are way better at it than you, so let them do it. So some of my tips for dungeons. The first one is don't be afraid to use Shadow Mend. It will save your tank. So Shadow Mend, the way it reads is that it wraps an ally in shadows which heal for 73,000, but at a price. The ally will take 3.6k damage every 1 second until they have taken 36,700 total damage from all sources or leave combat. So that damage taken is 50% of the damage that it's healing at all times. However, that doesn't mean that Shadow Mend itself is doing that damage. So if you cast it on a tank and they take a hit for 74,000, you heal them for 74,000. They take another hit for 40,000 right after you heal them, your Shadow Mend's not going to do any damage to them at all. All you did was give them a 74,000 heal. So the debuff that's on there, it gets removed with the damage. So it's a set amount that it's doing the damage for, or that it's bringing the tank down. And it's never going to do negative healing, so you don't have to worry about that. So next is that there will be times that you will have to let a DPS die, especially if they're being stupid. If you have a DPS that decides to stand in everything, just let them die. You're going to go trying to save them. You'll lose your tank trying to save them, which will wipe the group. Just let them die. The last one is, and I can't stress this enough, especially since I always forget, but have water on you unless you really outgear the dungeon, and drink in between the pulls, even if it's only a couple of ticks before the tank pulls the next pack. You will go It is mana intensive. You don't have a filler spell that you can spam endlessly like some of the other specs. Your smite actually does put an absorb on the target, so it is a really, really strong heal as well. And while it is the weakest of all of our healing, you still can't spam it all the time. It's yeah. All right. So next, I'm going to go over my tips for raids. So one of the best ways I can see to explain this is it plays similarly to a Warlord's Arcane Mage, where you have your burst phase and you have your conserve phase. Your burst phase is again when you're getting out all those atonements and you get those big heals out. And then your conserve phase, you're probably going to want 4 to 5 atonements out, and you'll cast penance on cooldown, keep your dots up, use your power word shield on cooldown, smite every once in a while if you have the mana. Yeah. So you really want to conserve your mana in those low damage phases. That's pretty much it. So second is you want to watch your timers. Again, watch your timers. I can't stress this enough for those key abilities, and use your cooldowns to set up for your big burst heal. So your cooldowns are better when they are stacked. However, you don't want to stack all of them because then you won't have them for other phases. So one of the big things is when you have Lust, you want to use Rapture. You'll get extra atonements out. Rapture is the ability that makes your power word shield have no cooldown. So you'll just get extra power word shields out on the raid for those extra atonements. And then, because power word shield, it's not a huge mana cost, that's the one you want to use with Lust. You want to use Radiance with your power infusion because not only does it give you the extra haste, but it reduces the mana cost. So you'll get the extra atonements out that way, and you won't have as many mana issues with that. The next thing is that if you focus on your healing, the DPS will come with it. I have seen logs where one person was not really getting all that many atonements out. They were focusing on the damage, and then the other healer was getting out probably 30% more atonements, but they were doing the same amount of DPS. They had the same item level. One just cast more smites than the other one. The DPS was negligible, the difference. So if you're doing your healing, the DPS will come and you'll be fine with that. My last tip for raiding, which is kind of funny, but make friends with a boomkin. So your innervate plus your radiant spam is another raid cooldown. Yeah. So you get your free cast radiant spams, and I believe in Legion they'll actually have a talent that increases your haste while you get their innervate as well if it's a boomkin. So yeah, it's another raid healing cooldown using that. So my final thoughts for this video are that yes, Disc can be a very strong healer. Um, However, in raids, you need other healers to complement you. Mainly those are for tank healing and during your minimal damage phases. Let your other healers, like your druids and your shamans and your holy priest mastery, monks, pretty much everybody has those trickle heals that are going to be going out at all times. Let them take care of that part, and you will still do massive amounts of healing if you time everything right. So, thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments, questions, anything, please leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out some more. And as always, have a great day.